Welcome to the Starting Over Podcast. I am your host, Edward Shelton, aka Darklogos, and this is a show where we look at the strategies, tactics, and mechanics behind the game of heroclix. I know a lot of you all are probably a little frustrated with me, like I haven't put out that much, but I will try to put out blog postings of my weekend and what happened and what's going on and this, that, and the other. But you're sort of hearing this in a weird time lapse because you're hearing me before the tournament, which is what I'm recording now, and then I'll record later in the same cast, and you're going to hear my thoughts after the tournament. So it's going to be very, very interesting. You're also going to hear me sort of type while I do this. So just sort of bear in mind, you hear the clicking and all of that. While I'm talking, I am actually doing an inception moment and uploading the last show to YouTube. So, yeah. Marty, what time zone are we in? Okay. Anyway, here we go. What I decided to do was first I got wise counsel, because I know a good amount. But the one thing I sort of admit is on some things, I sort of fell off. So I have to have other people's experience to help compensate for that. And I know that sounds strange. It's like, Darklogos, you sort of fell off. Like, what do you mean? Like, I mean, that's sort of been my big concern for a while, is not being able to play as much as I wanted to. And then add in the fact that the level of competition that I'm dealing with right now is, I'm not going to say it's weak, because, Megalotus Man is still there, but Proxy stopped playing. I haven't seen KC Dreadnought in months. Almost, actually, probably like 6 months now. And there's a few other good players that I'm used to sort of battling it out, and I haven't. And so going into a major tournament, I can understand, like, it's sort of like a old warrior. It's like, oh my gosh, I know what battle is like, but can I win with the young whippersnappers? And so this is, I mean, like I said, this is just my feeling. I still study the game. I still look at stuff. But I realized, like, I needed other people's input, like, big time. So, first person, you're going to laugh. First person I talked to was Dan Moran, and you're going to be like, yeah, but you have him on the quarry and all that. And it's like, well, yeah. And that's the main reason, is that we started our thinking because he was also going to go to a rock event. And so we started throwing stuff out there. Then I talked to Hunter. And that was an interesting conversation, because Hunter's tried to get me on that Phantom X crack, and I'm not on that Phantom X crack quite yet. Phantom X has to do a lot more before I get on that. Then what ended up happening was I talked to a guy I work with, Silent Scream. I told you in previous casts he's been upgraded to Jedi Knight, but sometimes I wonder if he works for the Sith. But we started hashing out teams, so I hashed out a preliminary team, and you can feel free to use any of the teams that I bring up. And this is a preliminary team for 300, because I made the assumption, like, I'm going to the top, baby. And that was sort of a bad idea to start there. But 300 points is the toughest part. And so anyway, the tournament is 600 points prelims and 600 point modern age prelims and 300 point modern age for the finals, for the breakout rounds. So it was tough for me mainly because at 600 points it was like, oh my gosh, all these things. And then at 300 points it was like, oh my goodness, what do? I have even less options. So at 600 points, with some of my conversations, it wasn't as conclusive as the 300 points. And so the first thing that I tried to solve for was, how am I going to maneuver? The second thing I tried to solve for was what type of offense that I was trying to do. Last thing I was trying to solve for was, how am I going to generate damage? So I kicked around a Thanos Killbox team. Gosh, that one was painful, because what we figured was that you needed to win points. You couldn't just be like, I'm going to go in to win and I'm going to get as many points as I can, but if I don't get them all, that's okay. You have to say, forget that, like straight up for a big tournament. You have to say, how do I kill everybody now, not later. Not like, oh, I have 5 minutes left on the clock. You just like, no, now. Just they're dead. So I did some testing, and the Thanos kill box could handle some things, but couldn't handle some other things. And so that became a big problem. Because it was like, oh, okay, I can put barrier, I can do this other thing, and then it's like, no, this isn't coming together. And so what it really came down to was, what did I really need to focus on? And so in the end, I looked at 2 elements. One was team bases, and then the other was just trying to put like a hodgepodge of characters together to make something like just like sync and work. Well, the thing I found out real quick was my team design didn't really work for higher points, and then trying to get in enough damage and mobility and all this other stuff was just, it was too much for me at this point in time. And I started like December 13th, and the tournament's January 11th. So what I resigned to do was the following. I looked at my heroclix 5th crush, the Shi'ar Imperial Guard, and I looked at my number 1 nemesis, the Justice League, at 600, because that was where my conversations kept coming back. Time after time was like, what about the Justice League? What about the Justice League? What about the Justice League at 600? So I played a couple of matches with the Justice League at 600 and Shi'ar at max points with Lilandra and the Bat Signal and a Pog. Now, for those who are not familiar with the Imperial Guard, they have an ability for once per game. They can just be placed anywhere on the map and like bust down walls and stuff, and then pretty much do whatever the heck they want to. Which is one of the teleportation powers that did not get fixed by the watch list, mind you. And then I combine it with Lilandra, who has a teleportation power that did not get fixed by the watch list. And then I combine it with the Bat Signal, which has a teleportation power, which did not get fixed by the watch list. You sort of get where I'm going. Just a tad. So pretty much on turn 1, I moved the Pog out. My opponent is probably wondering like what's going on. Because I have +6 to map, and most people aren't familiar with the Shi'ar. They're familiar with Justice League, but they're not familiar with Shi'ar as much. And so I pretty much just planned that turn 1, decide where I'm going to go, move out my Pog, look at who's the biggest threat to my entire team, zip out on turn 2 with Lilandra if I need to. If I'm not really feeling too safe or I can't get the pulse wave off that I want, then I'm not going to put Lalandra out. She's going to chill back in the starting area. But pretty much what I'm going to do is on turn 2, depending on the circumstances, I'm going to teleport out with the team base. I am going to single target pulse wave for 6 damage, and I'll have a prob built in because I'm a theme team. And then I'll have a 12 attack. So I will pulse wave and then do a second attack. Now, if I can get a flurry off, great. If not, that's fine too. But then pretty much that's that. Then have Lalandra or the Pog summon me back to safety. And then proceed on my next turns to pop off. I need to roll for my asset dial. Pop off, and then on turn 3, I need to pop off Gladiator and then go to town. And you might be saying, like, why pop off Gladiator? Well, first off, I want a 200-point Gladiator. Second of all, having a sort of a bodyguard for Lalandra is pretty important. Third of all, I need to make sure while I'm still on my vet dial I can get a full-point Gladiator. Then after that, it's pull off whoever I need as needed. And the goal is to try to get at least 500 points worth of backup. Mainly, I'm looking at Oracle, it's like Starbolt and Warstar. And I sort of have a plan for like every character on the base. And so that's the big thing, is that I'm using the other characters on the base as well, but they serve like a one-time purpose. So that's a big element. So I tested against the Justice League at 600 points, and the Justice League at 600 points, that was interesting, because if the Shi'ar went first, GG. It was over. It was over. If you want to see the definition of brutal, look up Shi'ar Imperial Guard. If the Justice League went first, it was a fight, and it was 50-50. And in the end, I decided to go with Shi'ar, because less people are ready for Shi'ar than they are for the Justice League. I also fought the 2 X-Men team bases in practice. And it's not as good as I thought it was, like against the Shi'ar, because once you take out gold, blue is sort of a chump. Even if you pop off Gambit, you're going. And I know everybody's like, "Well, you pop off Gambit, and it's all great." And it's like, yeah, but you also have to realize, I can just pop up on my first action available, get a single target pulse wave for 6 on gold, and then shoot them really hard. And they're pretty crap after that. Like, your offense is dead. It pretty much is. I mean, you can say, like, oh, I'm popping off all these guys. It's like you popping off them at 300 points each and at experienced or less. And I'm popping off guys at my vet level. That's not going to work. So, you might say, like, well, what about this other thing and that? And it's like, yeah, there's tons of those things. Like, what about Silver Centurion? If I'm facing Silver Centurion, my opponent has I have other problems, and I can sort of handle that. And my opponent has a big problem: is how are they going to deal with the fact that I'm generating dudes, that my army value is, if left unchecked, will double what he has. So yeah, he can missile me with all he wants. If he can't get me off top click because I keep teleporting around, then that's on him. He'll have to come toward my area. So that's what my philosophy was on 600 points. Is that with mobility and teleportation and the powers combined, I form Broke Strong, Captain Broke Strong. So when I came to 300, there was a couple of teams that I was trying to solve for. I was trying to solve for. First was Silver Centurion. The second was M10 Iron Man. And last but not least, Absorbing Man. Because Absorbing Man is dumb. It's dumb. I'll leave it at that. What I resigned at the end was, after asking a rules question, is that the best way to beat Absorbing Man straight up is just to have a theme team. Because Absorbing Man 9 times out of 10 isn't going to have a theme team. The other way of dealing with Absorbing Man is TK and Mind Control. So some of my first draft team, I was really more afraid of M10 Iron Man and having the Book of the Skull and it screwing my whole team. So I was just looking at things that would only hurt part of my team but gave me other options. So I played I had the AVX Cyclops at 100 because he is way too overpowered for some things he does. But anyway, for his outwit in particular. Then I had M10 Iron Man, GCPD Cycle, GCPD ATA, and Jinx. So I had Prob, moderate stat modification, movement for any of my major characters, and overall the team was meh. It was good for your local meta, but it wasn't what I felt was like big tournament good. If Cyclops took damage or Iron Man took damage, the game was over. So Double Barrier was sort of nice, but it couldn't solve for Silver Centurion like I wanted it to. So that team just died. It died fast. So I did some more conversations, and I started to throw out some characters that I thought could be interesting for the meta. First was the Invincible Iron Man. That's 110 points. He can't be targeted if he's in hindering or next to a wall, and he can turn to Iron Pharaoh or Iron Paladin, but I really like the Iron Pharaoh. Fear Itself Hawkeye has Thunderbolts, range, incap, and some other goodies, because the biggest problem I'm noticing is stealth is coming back, and it's funny, it's creeping back. It's not just blam stealth, son. It's creeping slowly back into the game, which I actually enjoy. 10th anniversary Green Goblin, again, because he has Thunderbolts, good attack, good damage, cheap. Sunboy, wild card, Pulse Wave, Avengers Prime. And here's why with Avengers Prime is that there's enough promotion characters. Well, I'll leave that one for another day. Invincible Iron Man, 124 prize support one. He has stealth and he has a situational super senses. He ignores hindering terrain and he has running shot. So that's good. Omen. This is where I go back to the mind control. With the Book of the Skull, giving her Null's Hammer makes her way too strong. Running shot, 13 attack with mind control. Sarah Rainmaker, 80 points. She's just good because she's cheap. Man Thing from 100 to 150 points has Thunderbolts, Poison, and Mystics. Lex Luthor Wildcard Abuse with GCPD, ATA, Avenger Initiative, or whatever else. I actually thought about doing Nova Prime with a Nova Corpse helmet on a Pog, but then I was like, well, that's a waste because I can't use the Infinity Gauntlet. Stranger Double Barrier team. And I just mainly was like, no one will see it coming. Incredible Hulk Wolverine. Incredible Hulk Airstrike Ross. Thunderbolt Ross and Richter for a range quake and also to possibly knock people out of stealth. And that's the thing people don't think about is that you're able to do a range, you're able to charge range quake and knock people out of stealth. So charge can actually turn into a running shot equivalent. So anyway, after all that, I was just like, well, let me think of a team with Silver Centurion, since I couldn't narrow it down too much. So I had Silver Centurion, Infinity Gauntlet, Jinx, and Batman TV Mr. Freeze. And the idea was that I was able to solve for Absorbing Man by having my team have incap, because that Mr. Freeze gives your team incap. And I would have a prob, and then I would be able to have double barrier. So the big thing that I learned from that is it still didn't solve for my M10 problem. It just really didn't solve for my M10 problem. Because whenever you do that incap in which damage would occur, it's still damage. So I threw that away. So if you want to use that team, it's good. It's good. But it won't solve for M10. So my grand hope that I wanted to put my hopes in, and that's very bad. Yeah. Anyway, was Omen, Big Bertha, because Omen has Mastermind, and Big Bertha is the best Mastermind fodder / third tier attacker you can get. New 52 GL, the one that's 72 points with Justice League ATA, just the one that gives me +1 defense against Sharpshooter, Indomitable, and Giant. Split Lip, Aldrich Killian, and Book of the Skull with Anger's Hammer, Scotty's Hammer, Noel's Hammer, Curse Hammer. So I did some play testing with this, and the team sort of goes downhill once GL gets hit, and I didn't like that. I didn't like that at all. The other thing that's interesting is I played Dan with his, which will remain top secret, Absorbing Man team. In the first round, I just got all the hits off on Absorbing Man. And it was sort of one-sided, and I didn't really learn too much from it. The second game, I really learned a lot, because not only did he beat me, he showed me the biggest weakness of the team, which was, guess what? Omen can mind control characters, but she's going to take feedback damage. And you're not guaranteed to have Aldrich Killian within range to heal, and then everybody sees Aldrich Killian, and then they dogpile him. So it doesn't work as well. It didn't work as well as I thought it would. But Split Lip is a boss, because combined with Green Lantern, he's hitting like a truck. So overall, the team is good. It just didn't solve for as many things as I needed it to solve for. So in the end, I decided to go with the Justice League. The Justice League at 300 points. Now, I know a lot of you are like, come on, Darklogos, you're better than this. And in the back of my head, I said the same thing. But here's why. First off, the biggest problem that when I play tested was dealing with freaking Silver Centurion. And I also play tested my team against the team I told you previously, against Silent Scream's aggro Silver Centurion. And I will tell you, people, aggro Silver Centurion is way scarier than people think. Like really. I don't know what type of playtesting they did for Silver Centurion, but an aggro Silver Centurion with a couple elements, and it becomes very scary at 300. So the first thing I had to solve for was getting rid of everybody else's lack of pushing damage. So that's Batman. It gives me tempo control. You attacked me, you take damage. You don't attack me, I didn't take damage. You see how that's how it works. The next thing is I needed something to deal with the barriers, and Flash deals with barrier. Once he pops off, you make sure you save your perplex for him, and he charge flurries. Pure and simple. And you might say, like, well, hey, Darklogos, he's going to get shot. Not with a double barrier team. If you just wait till the main attacker is token and charge flurry. Bust down those walls. You're in a position where pretty much like you're just blocking where a wall would be. And then they're forced to either A, relocate, or B, try to hit Flash. And me losing Flash is sort of a deal, but it's not a big deal. Next up is having a range of damage that's not just high damage. When dealing with Absorbing Man, like I said, you need a theme to beat him, and the best thing to use is to just stop his whole beginning shenanigans of him absorbing 2 objects is to play the map from Fear itself with the water. You can't put objects on water terrain. No matter, you can move through it and all the other stuff. The whole map's water. You just can't put objects down. So guess what? He can't put his starting objects down. So I don't have to be scared about +3 at the beginning. The other thing that's interesting, which is pretty cool, is with the Justice League dealing with Absorbing Man, is I can be put in a position where I could just wipe the rest of his team and have with the main team base, and then have like my little solo adventure characters just take random shots at Absorbing Man. Because once Absorbing Man loses his backup and he doesn't have those plus stats, then it's a different game. Also, which is cool, is that you're able to have access to characters with super strength, so you could just chuck a light at Absorbing Man and then he only has like +1 stats. So that's if I don't get mapped. So those were some ideas. Dealing with M10, I don't have to be afraid of M10 because I don't have a relic or a resource. So my opponent rolled and bet and lost. Sorry, bet, rolled, and lost. So anyway, here's some other teams I was thinking of, just for giggles. Justice League team base at 300. These are 600-point teams. Justice League team base at 300. Lucius Fox at 35 points. Fast Forces Nightwing at 100. Gizmo at 78. Bat Signal at 2. GCPD Cycle at 19. Oracle at 50. Then I had an ATA. I forgot which ATA I have in here. Anyway, but the main goal is pretty sort of obvious, is that I just take tokens off the Justice League team base, give them powers that they shouldn't have with Gizmo, and prob, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Team 2 was the Justice League team base at 300, Beta Ray Bill, utility belt with the Batman cape on Beta Ray Bill, Lucius Fox, John Constantine, Alfred Pennyworth. This was called Team Stealth, You Can't Hit Me. None of boo-boo, you can't hit me. And pretty much I just protect the Justice League because they have Batman TA. And then I use Lucius Fox to remove tokens off of Beta Ray Bill in the Justice League. And then Alfred Pennyworth heals everyone. Oh, and I think I could take it off of Alfred, I think. I'm not sure. Oh, John Constantine copies Batman, and he also takes away my opponent's prop. So, I deleted all my Thanos teams because they worked, and then they couldn't solve for the other things that I thought were more probable. So anyway, that's it. Those are my thoughts going into the tournament. I feel that my odds are good, and hopefully, after all is said and done, I will be a champion, and then I get to interview myself. If not, I get to see how the other teams fared and why they won firsthand, instead of getting weird tournament reports. So that is it. I will return magically through the power of the internet. Fast forward in time. All right, doop. Fast forward magic has happened, and pretty much a lot has happened in my tournament experience, and so I'm going to sort of take away a lot of what I learned and from my playing, and I'm going to just give it to you. I'm going to give you the overall result. I placed second, which many of you are going to be like, Hercules. I can't lie, the final round, you're going to watch it, is I did the best I could and I laid it all out on the field. But there's really nothing to do. That Shuma and the power plant, like those two things together are really ridiculously strong. So that takes a lot of the like anticlimactic stuff out of the sales of the show. Well, not anticlimactic. That's wrong. It takes some of the climax out of the show. There we go. My comment might have been anticlimactic. That's the correct use of the phraseology. Anyway, my main point of telling you this is so you wouldn't have to wait like another 30 minutes. I'm not going to do like a rundown of like all my rounds. What I am going to do is I'm going to pick out like the points that stuck out the most. And I think like some of you like, well, Darklogos, I want to know about all the rounds and what happened. The main reason I'm not is because it would be like another hour and a half of breakdowns. So anyway, going on, first major lesson I learned is have a timer when you go to a tournament to let you know when you need to be back from lunch. Because I got a loss because I was not back on time for lunch. So that's the first thing. That would, in most tournaments, at that situation, you would have just been like, you might as well withdraw from the tournament because you have 2 losses. But I kept playing because there was 32 people. In a normal event, I would not have made it. So that says something. Anyway, the next lesson I learned is don't forget old demons of the meta. And what I mean by that is in the 300-point top 16, people just completely underestimated the reality of a team base because I was the only one that played a team base. And I know this sounds weird for me saying it. I was a Maverick. I know, like, that sounds weird, like the Justice League player is the Maverick. But the teams that I face couldn't solve for either me picking a map that would screw them over, me not having a relic so that they could screw me over, or just the pure fact that I'm stealth. Those 3 things is what won me games. I don't have a resource dial. I can pick map, have a higher chance of picking map, and oh yeah, I'm stealth. So that's something to be said. That's the big lesson. I forgot about freaking Shumagorath because he never really crossed my mind because tournament exclusives, con exclusives usually sort of, I sort of look at them as what rich people hold over poor people, sort of thing. Like, hey, look, I have a con exclusive, and so I just sort of look at it as the lucky few that have them. But I can't functionally do that because in 2 different games, con exclusives really made the difference. One was Trendy of Sin, played by Wolfman. Big up to you, sir. And the other is Shumagorath. So don't count out stuff that's like con exclusives and don't just think like, oh, well, I don't have it, so I don't have to think about it. No, someone else has it. That's another big lesson. The third lesson that I have learned from this event is map is more powerful than we have been giving it credit for. And even on the show, I've said, like, always bring your maps and whatnot. But I would not have gotten to the final round if it was not for map. My Justice League team beat a Silver Centurion team purely because of map and in a luck roll. Those 2 things, Silver Centurion missing a key attack and the fact that he could not put down barrier and stall. So, and I mean stall in a good way, so he can power up his belt, not like stall like he took forever for a turn. So I don't want any hate toward that cat. So that in and of itself made me look at things differently. Not only that, I played an Absorbing Man team in the 600-point rounds, and that Fear Itself water map, it's worth gold because you can't place objects on top of that. And since you can't place objects, Absorbing Man cannot absorb objects at the beginning of the game, and he is pretty much, he's screwed. he's screwed royally. And there's nothing that he can do about it. And you could say, like, well, what if he's using the Book of the Skull? Just hit him with a light object after he gets his hammers, and he'll lose them. He'll lose his hammers. Like, the Book of the Skull is the worst thing to play with Absorbing Man, because he'll lose his relics. So, anyway, that's the next thing that I really learned is this map is just way too powerful. Fourth thing I learned is power plant OP, just a tad. A lot of the elements of the power plant and them being able to just float around to anyone on your team like freeform is way too powerful for what it does. And the ability to manipulate terrain and it permanently be what you want it to be, that to me is a problem. Because technically what I can do is I can, make hindering terrain clear terrain. But not only that, I can make water terrain and make certain other effects come into play that you would not think would come into play. Like, what was that? That Aquaman that's able to pop up inside of water terrain, like anywhere on the map and like smack people. Yeah. I know that's old school, but think about it. With the power plant, and I forgot which ring it does that. You can now do that. Like square number 1, bloop is there. Next turn, you can do whatever, because if you're able to take that token off that character, and make sure it's on a character with range, shoot a square far off, or pick a square that's far off, and like, yep, that's water terrain, boop. And then Aquaman's like, thank you for giving me the water terrain that I'm in now, and splashes off and cosmic punches with the heavy from the starting area. That to me is ridiculous. And you could say, well, Shuma can do all his little shenanigans and all that with Mole Man, and really, I'm not going to focus on that. But it's mainly the power plant. The power plant gives way too many options, because I would say if Shuma couldn't get the power plant and I just had to deal with the Book of the Skull, or even the utility belt, or utility belt, or the Infinity Gauntlet, I could sort of handle that. That one's a little bit more doable. It requires Shuma to get like right up on you to do some more things, and I can sort of kite, but that's a problem. That's a major problem. It's just the power plant does way too many things than what it should. So I can't hate on the people that invested the time to get all that stuff early. And I'm going to tell you guys, like, get that stuff. Just get it. Get all the rings you can. I hate to say it, this is one of those times where you have to be on a figure chase and hit the eBay. Anyway, the next lesson I learned is I can't go to an event and people not know me. I thought, like an idiot, I could just show up and be like, hey man, I'm Darklogos, I do the Quarry podcast. It's on AC Realms. I can set up my stuff over here later on, and we can have a little fun time. When I stepped out of the car and entered the door of the venue, they're like, hey, you're Darklogos. Went up to the judge table. It's like, you're Darklogos, aren't you? Go and meet some other people. It's like, hey, Darklogos, how you doing? So that part was very interesting. So like Wolfman, Eric the Red, Mace, few others that were there, what's up to y'all? And it's interesting that when you have people that come to your show because they want to know more about the meta, and then you have to fight them. And it's like, part of what they're thinking because you gave them those thoughts, but then they take it and work with it however they want to, and you don't know. So that was interesting. Losing to Eric the Red, I let him know his prize was he beat me. He beat me, so that was his prize. Like, yeah, at least he walked away like he could say, like, I beat Darklogos, and that he did. So yeah, come to think about it, only 2 people beat me in that tournament. So my win-loss total was not that bad. So like 7-2. So yeah, that's not a bad total win-loss. Like when you look at it like that, that's different. So yeah, I can't pop up and just, like, hey, I'm a nobody. But if you are going to come into a con, if you keep your head low and you just be polite and just smile and be nice to people, you are a nobody and you have an advantage until the moment you put your team down. And if your team looks obvious, then some people might be a little bit more defensive. But if your team is subtle, you can get the snap on some folks. So that's one lesson that I definitely learned. Another lesson I learned is don't put your team out there just before people have turned in all their sheets. Don't do that, please, because I'm walking around the tournament, and of course I travel, so my team is locked. Okay, but I see people building teams and stuff. So the judges do have to verify in a rock tournament, like, hey, you have this. I need to see that you have this. And so I had them verify like all my stuff. And during that period of time, yeah, show the judges all your stuff. Show them your cards, show them your figures, all that. But then promptly put it away. Because the longer that it's out is the more information other people can gather on your team. Like I saw, I was a little kid, and I was like, oh, okay, props to you. You're playing Trigun. Yay, 600-point Trigun. But I saw the Shuma teams, like, from the jump. And I'm thinking to myself, Shuma, what is Shuma doing? And I go look at Shuma's point values, and it's like 200, 600, 1,000. I'm like, I don't think they're playing him at 600, so they have to be playing him at 200, which means that he's very shallow, which means that you just need to get up there and land 2 shots on him before he goes and sends a bazillion Mo-men to do bad things to you. So that in and of itself, the chance that you have to get information off your opponent at a big event is ridiculous if people are sloppy with just placing their teams out there or building their teams at the venue, trying to figure out what they're going to do. That is dumb. That is so dumb. And it's not, and I don't mean it in an insult like those people lack intellect to play heroclix. I don't mean it like that. I mean it in the sense of you are giving away too much information to your opponent to let them formulate potential plans. And that is a problem. Anyway, other lessons that I learned, theme teams are still strong. Min-max has its place, but go back to like the earlier point. Maps. Maps matter more now than they did before. Regardless of teleportation shenanigans and whatnot. Maps matter, and theme team gives you maps. And when I went into the out rounds, the pure fact that I had a theme team and my opponents didn't made sure that momentum was in my favor from the start. And I know some of you might be like, well, Silver Centurion on an Avengers team isn't that good. Okay. Maybe Stall Silver Centurion isn't, but Aggro Silver Centurion might be. Have y'all thought about that? I mean, and I know, and again, it's like the mockery voice. Like, hey, I'm not directly talking to you all. It's the fictional character, but, that's the one thing that it hits me is that when it comes to the flexibility of the meta, it's like, well, those brilliant guys over at Majestics played this, and those brilliant guys over in Tulsa played that, and, Darklogos proved this at Tulsa, and so-and-so proved this over there. Push all that aside. They proved that they could beat their matchups. That's it. They didn't prove that their team was superior to everybody else's team. No, because I would say the year that Alex won, Patricia's team was far superior to Alex's team. It just was. But Patricia made a mistake, and Alex capitalized on that. There aren't teams in the game where you could just point, click, shoot. Even with the Shuma team, the player using Shuma needs to know what everything on the power plant does, and you have to know how you are going to use those elements to achieve what you're going to do. That's it. If you fail to understand that, then you're going to have problems. So just having a theme team matters. Getting the props, it's not as much, and the props, they're sort of get you out of jail free cards, but that's about it. But it's mainly getting those maps. Moving on. The other lesson that I've learned is, if you're going to a big tournament and you're going to be a casual, put on your big boy shoes and gloves and overalls, and be prepared to get dumped on. And then definitely if you're going to bring a casual team, and if you're there just to have fun and do out rounds and all that other jazz, go there, meet people, talk, and just joke around, and don't take the round seriously. If you take the round seriously of what's going on, you will be pissed off beyond belief. And I'll bring up one round that I played. My final round, because of my 0-point loss and the fact that whenever I beat my opponent previously, I wiped them. I faced a mid-range 2-2 opponent, and he ran 2 Wonder Girls. What was it? 2 Wonder Girls, Brother Voodoo, the Cop Car, Split Lip, and Absorbing Man. And he was like, I just threw these guys together. And I'm like, you threw together all of the major meta pieces without any synergy whatsoever. Okay, cool. All right. That's not scary. Oh, you have meta pieces, and proved that it didn't work together. It just didn't work together. If you get to a point where you say, like, hey, just because you have good figures doesn't mean you have a good team. And it was not a good team. And I don't mean that to be insulting to the guy, but it was not a good team. So because I had theme with Shiar and Lalandra, and Superfan is my pog, Superfan, I chose the Fear Itself water map. And that was it. Absorbing Man couldn't place objects. Since the orange rules were ignored, his characters are moving half movement through all that water. So what now? Oh, okay. So he tries to move up a little bit, and he gets hammers on his 2 Wonder Girls. You know what I did? He also had Scarlet Witch that could get rid of team abilities. So you know what I did? I teleported over and flurried Scarlet Witch and hit her for 6, KO'd her, hit, let me see, I hit Brother Voodoo for 6, and I KO'd him, and then I punched Split Lip in the face and KO'd him, and then I took my 1 Mystic out of all that, and then I promptly summoned the Shiar back with Lalandra, and I was like, okay, what you gonna do? Now, some of you might think, that's a bit punkish, Darklogos. You took out his Split Lip, and you took out his 100-point Scarlet Witch, and you took out, his Brother Voodoo. Of course he didn't have a chance against you. Why don't you go after the Wonder Girls? I couldn't one-shot them. Pure and simple. If I knew if I took split lip away, you have to take power actions to get book of the hammers from the Book of the Skull. That slows you down, and you can't afford to be slowed down against my team. Next thing I know is you're going to do some mind control shenanigans, and I can't afford that with me popping guys off. So got to kill that. Last but not least, I can't afford to lose my power cosmic on. I just can't afford to lose my power cosmic on the Shi'ar team base. So guess what? Scarlet Witch has got to die. And so he tried to, keep maneuvering, and I just kept killing off figures, and all that was left was Absorbing Man, and me rolling, trying to hit Absorbing Man, and him getting past his power, and me not making the correct decision to freaking pop off Hussar so I can in-cap him because he was running the Book of the Skull and he didn't have willpower. So, mistakes were made on my part. But I did KO Absorbing Man. Now, you might say, I was going to get back to that guy and he's going to think that you insulted him. No, he had a team that if it was on a normal map, he would have been done a lot better. And if he wasn't dealing with a hyper aggro team, he would have done a lot better. But at the same time, he was not having a good time fighting my team. If you can't deal with your local meta and it being cheesy, and then you come to a big tournament, you age that cheese more. It becomes the prim, the cream of the crop, the echelon cheese. It's the cheese that you have to wait 5 years to get cheese, okay? And if you can't handle that on the inside, don't come to a big tournament. Just stay to your local tournaments and win those. Because I after that round, I heard somebody complaining about the Shuma team and at 600, and they're like, why even play that at a tournament? You're just going to auto win. That's not even fun. And I'm like, really? Like, if I faced a 600-point Shuma team, I know I would have some problems, but I know if he messes up, I will pulse wave that fool. Like, what then? What if Shuma dealt with, something that he wasn't ready for? So there are elements out there that you just can't be like, well, it's a big tournament, and of course they act like douchebags out of big tournaments. No, people are very nice. What was interesting, ended up having a conversation with a guy from TCG Player, and he's like, one thing he noticed is the heroclix community is very nice, and that is something that I know from dealing from other games, is that we are a nicer community on average to some other communities. So, keep that in mind. Go there, do your trades, get the sales at the store, have fun, talk it up, meet people, and then, roll. Make connections. But definitely, if you are a casual player and you want to play in the main event, make sure you got your big boy pants and gloves, and you're ready to wade through the BS. Yeah. The last thing that I really gathered is team bases aren't dead. They're not on life support. They've just mutated. And come think of it, I might have a couple more points after this one. Anyway, after playing 2 team bases through all the games, I can't say that, team bases are super easy. I think what I've done is I've verified the thought in my head. Team bases are for advanced players only. And I know some people might take that as an insult, and it's not. Because here's why. At 500 points, Shi'ar team base has the max amount of actions that they can get, which is 3. In 3 actions, you have to decide what your power action is going to be, and if you're going to use a ranged combat action, ranged combat attack, a movement action, a close combat action, or a close combat action attack. close combat attack. You have to decide that, and you need to know what you're going to do. Because if you decide to running shot, you cannot do a power action. You just can't, because you can't do another power action. If you hypersonic speed, you cannot do another power action. If you use working together to break off for solo adventure, you cannot do another power action. And so much of your team dial is power actions, and so much of your asset dial is power actions. And you look at all your dials for all your different team bases, and you start to notice you have a lot of power actions. You don't have a lot of free actions. You don't have a lot of stuff that just goes off during range combat attacks or range combat actions or close combat attacks or close combat actions. There are a lot of power action options. Not only that, at 3 actions at 500 points, you are at an action disadvantage. And if you fail to properly assess your opponent and how solo adventure applies to your opponent's force, in combination with your asset dial, and understanding that the loss of that figure from your team base indicates a loss of power from your asset dial and potential more points for your opponent to score, then you, if time is called, you will lose. If you fail to account for any of that, you will lose. If you fail to understand that a team base is a Swiss Army knife and that you need to understand how to maximize every level of play and every option available and every circumstance in which you are going to pop off that figure or put it back on. If you fail to do this, playing high-level meta play is impossible. Impossible. I'll go back to my round against Silver Centurion. That gentleman had one of the most excellent teams that I played against, and it was tough and it was difficult, and I was sweating the whole time. Yeah, I think Arrow Guns. That's his name, Arrow Guns. He has a Magneto helmet right now. So anyway, but when I saw what was going on with his team, I was like, I prepped for fighting Silver Centurion. I knew I had a 50-50 game against Silver Centurion. I knew that if I messed up, Silver Centurion was going to beat me. I knew that if he got his torpedo out and it got super crazy, that I was going to lose one of those figures that I popped off at minimum. And if you think about it, most of those figures only those when you pop off on a rookie level with the Justice League, those figures are 3 clicks deep, and you might get toughness. Okay, so with 3 clicks deep, all he has to do is wait 3 turns after he summons it out, and he can one-shot anything that I pop off, which will change tempo greatly. Okay, so when you understand that if I had a misplay or a misplacement with Batman, that he is guaranteed to pop off his missile, and then promptly in a period of reasonable time charge it up and possibly kill me, because again, only defense that I have of evasion is shape change, and of course the missile gets past that. And that I have 2 timers running. One is the Infinity Gauntlet and the second is the missile. And then I only have, and if I was really only fighting it with 2 actions, really? You can't play like that. You really cannot play like that. If some noob was gotten to the top 16 and then they were like, I got super lucky, I played the Justice League and I never popped anybody off. When they played that guy, he would have waxed them hard. Even if he took them, he would have took them to the water map like I did. He would have waxed them hard. So I think until proven otherwise, team bases aren't the auto win. They require skill. And yes, I do know, like, hey, I can put, Gizmo on there and enhancement and craziness and all that other silliness that you can do. But really just straight up playing a team base, it requires a lot of skill. You really got to have that Swiss Army knife mode, and you got to put in time, and that goes into my next point. If you're going to go to a big tournament and you're not willing to put in at least a month's worth of work, don't go. If you're not willing to put in a month's worth of work, don't go. And I'm not going to say it's a complete waste of time, but if you think you're going to get first place, don't go. Don't go. And here's why. I put in barely a month. And I resigned to play Justice League in the last week, on the Sunday before the event. Because in all, you have to look at it. How much R&D are you doing? And you also have to look at rock ages, because rock ages are now in effect. So if your event wasn't already scheduled before the rock ages, then guess what? If it's scheduled after the Rock Age announcement, it's going to follow the Rock of Ages. And so you're going to, is it a modern age event? Is it a Silver Age event? What type of event is it? Are all figures allowed? So that's another thing to think about. And if you are not doing your homework, there's going to be something major that's going to slip by you. And if I could say this, at 600 points, with everything that I saw, I could confidently say this. If someone was able to build a team, and with that team, you build Chase Thanos, and you knew what you were doing, you would have been able to beat a good amount of teams just based on capture at 600 points. You wouldn't have been able to beat Shuma teams because those were all theme. Like, there was all monster themed. So, like, you had, like, no chance. But just about, you would have gone 4-1 real easily. Real easily. So, there's some things that just don't, escape you. That just don't go by the wayside real easily. If you do your research, you would see stuff. And then when you show up, it's like, okay, cool, some of my research was right. Like, when I showed up, I saw 3 other people playing Shi'ar Empire, Imperial Guard, and all of the teams had Lalandra, and the one team had the utility belt on Lalandra, and another team had was Eric the Red's team, and he had the Gamma Bomb. And so all of those figures and all those how they operate were in someone's analysis, that they noticed that you can phase up, pulse wave and then flurry, and then almost anything is dead, or you could kill several things. There's lessons learned, and their tech came out. And then there's other folks who, like my man Mace, who played a shield team, and he went 4-1, and his loss came in because I made him late from lunch. He went undefeated with a shield team. Now, most folks were going to be like, well, Darklogos, how do I factor for a shield team? You can't. That one shocked me, and he almost didn't play it. But put in your work, put in your time. Don't. This isn't some slack tournament where you're the king of your area, so that means like you're the best in 5 counties. No. And I can't even say like, hey, I beat a whole bunch of people. I'm probably one of the best players in heroclix in 5 states. No, I can't. All I can say is I put in work, and if I didn't play as much PS3 as I did, I probably could have performed better. I am not going to front. My PS3 took me away from a lot of work that I did, And that goes into my next point. Anxiety. Understand how you are going to deal with it. In prep, I will say this. My biggest anxiety dealing with myself was being afraid of living up to my own name. Which is sort of dumb, I will admit. But when you have a podcast and your podcast is about your tech and about how to be tactical, that can backfire if you go like 1-4. So I did work, but then I would stop, and then when I would think about like I need to do work and I need to do work on my teams, I was like, no, I need to go play Infamous. I need to go play Infamous 1. I beat Infamous 1, work on my little stuff again, and then I'm like, I feel some anxiety, go work on Infamous, to play Infamous 2. Okay, I need to work, go play Infamous 2 some more. I finished Infamous 2 on the Thursday before the tournament and finished most of my prep and self-practice Friday before the tournament. That is wrong. That is wrong. And I slapped my hand on that. Okay? And a lot of people deal with anxiety in different ways because for them, running away from it and not acknowledging that the event exists is a way of dealing with anxiety and processing anxiety, and that's not a good way of dealing with anxiety. On the pre-rounds, and then finding out, this didn't work, and I'm down to 3 days before the tournament. Just ignoring something doesn't work. You can't do that. You have to just get stuff finalized and get it practiced and get in your head and dedicate the time to it. The other anxiety I learned from doing forensics and playing chess is in between rounds, talking is nice, getting a hold of people is nice, talking with your team is nice, but do whatever you need to do to get your anxiety level down from the round. Win, lose, or draw. Get your anxiety level down. Listen to music. Relax. If you need to talk to people, but try not to talk about the team. Talk about the venue. Talk about clicks that you want to get. Talk about the prizes given away. Talk about the weather. Don't talk about heroclix unless it's really essential for your matchups and you're on a team or you're with a group of buddies and you're all running the same thing. Or you saw something and it was ridiculously strong. Or it was something that confused you. But outside of that, sort of push that to the side, let it go, let your tensions roll down, and then get yourself ready for the next round. In between every round, from the first round to the last round, you could find me outside getting my head together. Every round. I would listen to my one song that I knew I needed to listen to, and then I would listen to it a couple of times and then go back inside. I would listen to Ali by Sho Baraka, and one of the lyrics is, hello greatness, I'm glad to meet you, false humility and doubt, false humility and doubt, told me like I couldn't see you. And so the thing that I had to resign in my mind the entire time was that I was going to be great in spite of my circumstances. I am going for the championship. And every round in the top 16, I took myself aside, calmed down. I texted my family and friends, let them know what happened. They were like, come on, go, woo, hopefully you win. We're praying for you, all this other stuff. And it let that cheering, even though it's digital, help calm me down, give me some encouragement, remind me who I fight for. And then, bam, I can go back into that next round and look my opponent in the eye and say, this is what I'm going to do. Here's my team. Here's my sheet. You can verify my team with my sheet. Here are my cards. Can I see your cards? Okay, that's what your team is. Okay. All right, let's put, I'm going to put my figures right there. Okay, you're going to put your figures there. Place objects. Okay, time started. All right, let's go. And so that at the end of each round, no one's going to say, like, man, it seemed like Darklogos was scatterbrained the entire time, or it seemed like, his head was like in 5 different places. He was very indecisive the entire time. You can say, if you look at me in a match, you'd be like, man, what is he looking at? Well, he's going back and forth, and then he's looking at this other thing. I would say I would look at my options, and then I would flip through my options of, and I do have all my sideboard dials on KO people, so I'm not cheating. Okay, and I even show my opponents, like, look, all my dials are on KO. But by looking at, okay, Wonder Woman, I know what she has by touching that dial. I don't even need to look at that card. I'm like, Wonder Woman has this. I don't need that. Green Lantern has this. I don't need that. Oh, I already have Batman on the field. Is Superman an option? So, being calm allows me not to carry the stress from the last game into the next game. So I'm not dealing with stress from the current game and half of the stress from the last game. And over a tournament, that will wear a mind down. So imagine going 5 rounds and then being told after those 5 rounds, even with the lunch in between, going those 5 rounds, you got to go play another 4 rounds. Just think about that. And those rounds are 40 minutes each. So you're looking at about another 4 hours of play. Now, stack half stress from each of those rounds if you were carrying that. And ask yourself, could your heart take it? Could your brain take it? Could your chest take it? Could your fingers take it? Could your nails take it? What's the status of your teeth? Are you grinding? Are you shouting a lot? Are you cussing a lot? Do you feel like you need to punch something? That is because you have failed to handle your anxiety properly in a tournament. And for some of you out there that do 3-round tournaments or 5-round tournaments or whatever, this still applies. Because if you fail to handle your anxiety and stress from round to round, your performance in the next round will degrade. Just will. So the last point is leave it out on the field and don't carry it with you and celebrate, no matter what happens. I can say for every round, except for the round I was at lunch, I put it all out on the field. Every round that I played went to tie. There's only 2 rounds. 3. Actually, I wiped all my opponents, except for the ones I lost. The one I lost. So yeah, wiping your opponents is incredibly hard. And if you don't beat yourself up. Going in, and if you go 1-3 or 0-4 or 0-5, whatever you go, did you go in and did you perform your best? If so, at the end of the time, say, like, man, I learned a lot and I played a lot of good people and they did this, this, and this, and this, and this is what I picked up from that. And write a note to yourself in your heroclix notebook of, I learned this today about myself. I learned this today from other people, and I'm grateful. And make sure you put that last line, and I'm grateful. I learned a lot from this tournament about my ability as a player, the type of fans that I have of the show, the quality of things inside of me, and more importantly, my ability to not just sort of say, like, hey, I'm going to tell you all this and not do it myself, but have to apply every lesson that I've taught and measure it exactly. So when you're able to be honest with yourself, then you can grow yourself when you set your next bar. So, anyway, this is my post-rock, Tulsa rock show. Hope you enjoyed it. And tell me what you think. Leave comments below. You can follow me on Twitter at StartOverPod. It came from outer space. Hit me up in Tulsa and told me, hey, remember your homies from back in the day? They came by to see you and wish you well. And that was another good thing. Big shout outs to my friends Kevin, Brady, Ricky from the Tulsa crew that I used to play with. They came out to see me, so it's always good to see old friends and make new friends. So shout outs to Mace and Ken the Red. Anyway, so at StartOverPod, you'll know when a new show is up. You'll hear my random musings. I did think about putting random points and stuff on Twitter about how I was doing, but then I thought, no, I need to focus. Then you can email me at startingoverpodcast@gmail.com. That's startingoverpodcast@gmail.com if you wish to opine. Keep it piffy, keep it interesting, keep it 100. Tell me what your thoughts on the podcast was. Tell me what your thoughts about rock is so far. Is money a better prize than figures and boosters, or is boosters the way to go? Let me know. I really want to know your thoughts on that. Last but not least, I need to start writing on the blog again. It's a new year. I need to make that a resolution. But if you ever want to donate to the show, you can donate through there. Anything that you donate goes back to the cost of the show. So that is startingoverpodcast.blogspot.com. And also I buy HCO codes. And let me know, hey, people playing HCO, I know one person told me that it's pretty much dead. Is that true? I really want to know, because it's sort of sad if HCO is dead. I be honest with you, I really don't play because I play too many other computer games. Anyway, I appreciate you all for listening. And definitely going to live this motto. Remember, we all have to start over sometime.